my God. What is going on, y'all? Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Chris Hennessy. This is Ending the Stigma. Restream has all kinds of new layouts, and so I just successfully deleted the background I usually have and could not get the intro video started. So, like, there's literally a clip of me going, "Oh my God, what is going on?" right at the beginning of this. So, yay for technology. Anyway, my guest tonight. So I met him the very first time we went to Memphis. We connected on Facebook before that. Whenever we first started The Raven Is Here, when I got hooked up with Ben and Jess, he was and still is a huge supporter of what we're doing. You know, he's bought shirts and hats and all the things. And then he met up with us. We went to BB King's and ate barbecue, and he met up with us while we were there, and I got to meet him, got a signed copy of his book. It is right here, Black and Novel. Just had a good time hanging out with him, and I've seen him every time I've been back since. And I know he had a story because I know he was a combat vet and overcome addiction, but I've never really asked him about it. So I'm going to hear all of this for the first time with y'all too. So y'all help me in welcoming, and I actually had to ask him how to pronounce his name the first time I met him. Kris Leahy. What's up, brother?
What's going on, brother?
Hey, man. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for
dude, I'm digging the red lights, dude. Like, that is like got me rethinking my whole setup right now.
Man, here's the thing, dude. That you can go to IKEA, and I bought these bulbs. They're these smart bulbs, and they got this little clicker with them. And
yeah,
they were like, I think they were like $36 a piece. And I did my whole place is like that.
I actually have, they're not smart bulbs, but I have a couple of like little small, and I control them with my phone. As a matter of fact, LED lights I can switch the colors up on and put them wherever I want them to, like accent up the back wall or whatever, kind of like you have there. I just haven't set them up yet because I'm lazy.
Yeah, I was so tired because, like, you guys don't have ceiling fans and like lights like in the ceilings down here in the South.
Dude, I do. I got two ceiling fans in my little tiny house, and I got another one in this little 10 by 14 shed that's my office. So yeah, dude, I have ceiling fans.
Yeah, dude, that like up in Indiana, they're all over the place. But
yeah,
as soon as I moved down here, I was like, there ain't a goddamn light in the ceiling. So I had to buy these lamps and everything, and I was just like, all right, fucking, I want to do it right and get them. I want to get some cool
right. Right. No, it looks good, man.
Thank you.
Looks really good. You've got me a little motivated to get my stuff set up right.
Dude, do it,
but
man.
The thing is, man, I'm fixing to get married and probably fixing to move, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time getting it set up exactly how I want to, and then I move again in like a month or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at now.
You guys find a place and everything?
Not yet, man. We're still looking. Rent houses are just so high, dude. Like, it's it's unbelievable. But God's going to have to step in on this one because rent houses are high. They're just high. Some stuff's going to have to happen for sure.
Yeah, man. Hopefully some shit changes. We'll see. We'll
We'll
see.
see. Yeah, we'll see. So look, dude, like I know you're a combat vet. Like you said, we've talked a little bit. You know, I know you beat addiction. You're hooked up with Ben and Jess. Like, are you still working at Gangland?
Oh yeah,
Put
yeah.
that
I
in
was, I
the-
was
Okay,
there
okay. I
today.
thought you were. Yeah, I put that in the post. I was pretty sure
Yeah.
you were. No, Chastity, I'm not moving to Tennessee. No, Jennifer's moving to Texas. Jennifer's moving to Texas. Um, so, dude, just kind of walk us through your story, man. Start where you want to start, go where you want to go, leave out or put in anything you want to put in or leave out.
Okay, cool. And if you want to, whenever you want to interrupt or go ahead, you ain't gonna hurt my feelings.
Okay.
So I'm 34 years old. I'll be 35 this year in September. I was born and raised in
September what?
September 27th.
Okay, my birthday's September 16th.
Okay, shit.
That's why I had to ask. Yep.
Let me write it down.
Right.
Get it.
Yeah. I was actually in Memphis for the block party on Melrose for my birthday last September. That's the first time I met Weston.
Yeah,
Was on the block then. Yep.
yeah. She's great, man.
Yeah.
She's a huge supporter of my sobriety.
Yeah.
She's just
I've seen that.
I've really lucked out with her as a partner, man. She goes and
Yeah.
sits. She goes to my 10 a.m. meetings with me and just sits in my truck and wait because the meetings that I go to aren't open. And she just sits in the truck and waits till the meeting's over, and then she'll come in and say hi to everyone. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Heck
great.
yeah. That's awesome, dude.
So yeah, I was born and raised in Florida, in a place called Newport Richey.
Yep.
It's 45 minutes from Tampa.
Yep.
And the first time I got like blackout drunk was when I was about 11 or 12. And it was Christmas. The way we did our Christmases as a family, like everyone in the family, the entire family would all meet up at one set of aunts or uncles or our grandmother and grandfather's house on my mom's side, and we ended up going to an aunt and uncle's house, and all this alcohol was left outside, and we all as kids were sleeping in tents outside because it's Christmas in Florida. There's still mosquitoes that you're swamped.
Right.
So
Right.
it don't, you can sleep out there in the fucking winter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was in the tent with two of my older cousins, and one of them snuck a bottle of Grey Goose vodka in there. And I had alcohol prior to that. The typical, my dad used to drink up until I was 7 or 8 years old. And, he'd be at the end of the driveway with his best friend and be like, hey, go get me a beer. And he would let me have a sip.
Yeah.
Well, it was, I had tasted alcohol prior to that. But I got blackout drunk, and it didn't take much. It was, literally just a couple of swigs.
Right.
And
How old were you again?
11 or 12.
11 or
About
12. Yeah.
11 or 12. And then, fast forward to 14 years old, and I was in a band. I was the bass player for this punk rock band. And we did a show, and after the show, we were going to the lead singer and guitarist's brother's house, who lived in a trailer park, and he was in his mid-20s. And he let us invite like all these fucking people from our school. And that night was the first night I smoked pot. I took a Vicodin, and I got plastered fucking drunk.
And how old were you at this point?
14.
14. Wow.
Yeah. And I I ended up going back home the next day, and I remember like just walking through the front door of where we lived, and my parents knew something was fucking up because I walked
Sure.
in looking and feeling like death, and I remember just standing in the shower feeling like total shit, but I loved every second of feeling like complete fucking annihilation the night
Mhm.
prior. And even though I felt like shit, I had just kind of got in my head like, hey man, if this is what like, if I'm gonna feel this, but the reward is feeling what I felt the night prior, then this is a pretty good trade-off, and I can get
Yeah.
down with this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Um, so within that first month, I had um was drinking probably 3, 4 times a week. I was smoking pot every day. I was taking Vicodin and Somas and Percocets. Um, and then I went to another party sometime shortly after that, and someone introduced me to cocaine, and I had tried cocaine. Um, I had taken mushrooms a couple of times. By the time I got into that was, ninth grade, going into 10th grade, and by the time I was like starting 10th grade, or maybe a little bit into 10th grade, I was a daily drinker and a daily drug user. Um, every morning it started off with me getting up, and I would go into the shower and I would smoke a bowl. And then my father would be asleep. My mother would have already left for work. And I would um, go into their liquor cabinet and I would fill up an entire water bottle full of vodka
Mhm.
and just pass it off as a bottle of water. I'd go across the
Yeah.
street. There was a kid who literally lived across the street from me, and he was one of the biggest weed dealers in the entire county at 15 years old.
Mm.
And I would smoke weed with him, and then we would walk further down the street, and I would smoke more weed, and I would pop a couple of Percocets, and I would show up to school.
Wow.
Um, and then I had lunch fourth period. I would cut out of lunch. I would go get high, and then I would come back, finish out the rest of the day at school, and then I would go home and I would drink more and I would get high. And then I worked a job as a telemarketer at the time, so I would walk to work, and I sold pills to my managers at that job.
Wow.
So I would show up fucked up every day, and no one really said anything because what are you gonna fucking send home the guy who's selling you pills? No, it's not gonna fucking. You and I both know that shit ain't gonna fly.
Right. Right.
Um, so that was, I mean, that was every day. Um, that was every day of my life in high school, up until a point in time where it just got um, way too out of hand. I started having trips to the hospital
Yeah.
uh, for alcohol poisoning and drug issues. And it ended up turning out one day, my father and I got into a physical altercation to where we were both, on the ground. Um, and I ended up, um, I either kicked him or stomped him, and I cracked either 2 or 3 of his ribs, I believe,
Dang.
and, I bolted it. I took off running, and, they ended up calling the police, and the cop showed up. The cop found me, a couple blocks away, and, he's like, "Look, you have 2 options. I either put you in cuffs or you get in the car on your own will." So I got in the car, and he drove me back to my parents' house, and before he got out, I said, "You're not gonna arrest me, right?" And he was like, "No." He gets out of the car, and my parents and him are talking, and he has me get back out, and that's when he puts me in cuffs. What had happened was, because my parents had made the call and someone had come out and I was visibly fucking drunk and high. I had taken a bunch of Xanax, and had drank, like 3/4 of a fifth.
Mhm.
That something had to be done. So rather than give me a record at 16 years old, cop took me to the hospital,
Yeah.
um, and I had my stomach pumped. And then from there,
Wow.
they brought me to um, what in Florida it's called Baker acting. It's when you're considered a danger to yourself or somebody else, and
Mhm.
they lock you in a state ward. And that's where I was for, I believe it was about a week or so. And when I came home, my parents wouldn't even come pick me up. Actually, they went to come visit me one day in there, and I was very, very aggressively rude to my mother and my father. I said a lot of terrible things to them. So my godfather ended up picking me up and taking me
Okay.
home, and he was like, "Hey, things are changing. We're doing things differently from here the fuck on out."
Right.
And I was still getting, I had still gotten drunk a handful of times. And then that's when my dad told me, "Look, we can't have you in the house anymore. We're gonna put you in a live-in rehab facility somewhere. We're pulling you out of school. You're gonna turn fucking 18 out there, and you know, that's it. That's that."
Right.
um, I went into panic mode because at the time I had a girlfriend and I definitely didn't want to leave my friends. The only thing that sounded great to me was not finishing school because I just didn't give a shit. And that following day, I walked to the recruiter's office and I took my ASVAB test and I signed all the paperwork I could legally on my own at 17 years old. And I came home. My mom was real upset because she thought I had skipped school and was getting drunk and high again. And I just slammed down this giant stack of paperwork and was like, "The second you fucking sign this, I'm out of here and I'll never come back again." Those are my exact words. "I'm out of here and I'll never come back again."
Wow.
And my mother was my mother was really upset, and we sat and talked for a while. And then when my dad got home, the three of us talked. And the next day, they all went up to the recruiter's office with me, and they went inside and they talked with the recruiter for roughly 45 minutes. And I just stood outside chain smoking. And my father came out and he said, "Is this what you really want to do?" I said, "Yeah." I said, I'm fucking up. This will get me clean and sober."
Yeah.
And my dad said, "If this is what you really want to do, we'll sign it, but we have a couple of things that you got to do. One is you can't get drunk and high anymore, and we're going to put you in outpatient or a intensive outpatient program.
Yeah.
The other thing is um, you got to finish school. You got to bring all your grades up." And then the last thing is they wouldn't sign off on me to do a combat job in the military. Um, and that was for their fear of having their son killed over in Iraq or Afghanistan.
Right.
Uh, and my father was familiar with that because his brother was killed in Vietnam, so he knew what
Okay.
that means to a family.
Right.
So I wanted to be a tanker, and my recruiter convinced them he's in a tank, nothing's going to happen to him. My parents signed off on it. Um, the day I turned 18, I went back to the recruiter's office and I changed my job to be infantry. For anyone who
And
doesn't
this
know,
was in the Army?
this was when I was 17. This was when I was still in school.
Okay. Okay.
But when I turned 18, I was still in school, and I went back to the recruiter's office. I don't need mommy and daddy anymore.
Right.
I'm an adult. So I changed my job to be infantry. For anyone who doesn't know what infantry is, that is a combat foot soldier. They're just a foot
Yeah.
soldier. And I decided to go airborne to jump out of airplanes because I was scared of heights, and I wanted to overcome my fear of heights. And I had never been on an airplane before in my life, so I
Right.
thought that would be a good introduction to it. I finished out school with relatively no issues. I didn't get high for that last year in school, but I had drank like 2 or 3 times. But I had wanted to drink every fucking day of my life, and I wanted to get high every day of my life. But
Right.
I wanted to get away and leave more than anything.
Yeah.
So I joined I get into the Army. I do all my training. I show up to my unit, which is the 82nd Airborne. I was with the 2325 AIR with Bravo Company, and I get to my unit, and 10 days later, I deploy. I get to my unit, brand new. 10 days later, I deploy. And that was in 2000. That was in January of 2010, and that was right after the earthquake happened in Haiti, where it was like 320 something thousand people were killed.
That caused like a big tsunami, didn't it?
Yeah, huge one.
I remember that. Yep, I remember that.
So, I get sent to Haiti on a humanitarian aid mission, and pretty much my entire job for the first like month, 2 months I was there was body recovery. We would go out and do missions, patrol missions, and guarding people. There would be people who would Red Cross was there, and they would do handing out of a lot of the foods and stuff like that. We were there for security purposes. But I did a lot of body recovery. I remember
I bet that was rough, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was 19 years old. I remember. So we slept in what was called a stick house. There was a compound within the Port-au-Prince hospital, and it was like this mansion type thing. And when we got there, there were dozens and dozens of dead bodies inside this room. And myself, 2 other guys who were brand new, they showed up the same day I did. And one of our medics were told, you need to go in there and take all the bodies out and lay them outside.
Dude, I can't even imagine, man. I'm thinking I'm almost 45. I'll be 40. Well, I say almost. In 6 months, I'll be 45. Thinking of as a 45-year-old, mostly mature, grown man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know how I would handle that, let alone being a 19-year-old kid who's just coming out of being nothing but, wanting to get high his whole life. And now all of a sudden you're like dragging dead bodies out of the plate. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just, I can't even wrap my head around how hard that must have been.
Man, it was super surreal because I kept, as I was doing it, I just kept thinking like, what are my friends doing back home?
Right. Yeah. They're smoking weed and getting drunk.
Yeah,
And
they're
popping
smoking
pills.
weed. They're on the beach picking up bitches, and like this is what I'm doing. I'm looking at a guy who has no legs in a wheelbarrow right now. Like that's what my morning is. Huh. Yeah, it was super surreal.
I bet.
And then once we got all the bodies out of there, we set up cots, and that's where we slept. That's where I lived for like 2 months.
In the same place y'all were dragging those dead folks out of.
Yeah. man, and I know I got in a shitload of trouble for this when I was in, and I have since talked to my therapist about it, and she said it's just completely, going to you're disassociating and you're
Yeah.
doing whatever you can to not deal with the
Yeah.
reality of what it was.
Right.
One of the days I had to go pick up the stillborns or babies that were killed from the earthquake that were within the hospital that they couldn't save, and I had to put them in an empty MRE box, and that was my thing for the day, just walking around and doing that for that part of my guard. And
Right.
buddy of mine, we were making jokes about the dead babies, and my squad leader at the time came up and he close fist punched me right in the back of the fucking head real hard. And he's like, "The fuck do you think you're doing?" He's like, "Do you think any of this is funny?" And at the time, he was like, "Well, yeah," because it was like, "Well, what else am I gonna do? I can't cry.
Yeah.
I can't express
Right.
that this is super fucked. Like, I can't do, it's not gonna
And
stop the bodies rolling in."
no, and this is on a very much smaller scale. But when I was in law enforcement, went through police academy, they talked about this in the psychological portion of the 17 weeks. And it was about how it was specifically related to cops, but I can see how that would drastically transform into military too. Is you laugh and make dark jokes about the shit that
Yeah.
you see. Because what the hell else are you going to do?
Yeah. You can laugh, cry, or get angry. I was
Yeah.
already angry every fucking day that
Right.
I was there. We had 2 uniforms and 4 pairs of socks, and we didn't have a fucking there were no showers.
Right.
We didn't have it. So I'm wearing the same dirty ass fucking uniform for a month
Right.
straight now. I haven't I my feet ended up getting infected real bad.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm already pissed off. I'm
Right.
already still the new guy.
Right.
Like
And you're
this
19 years old dragging literally babies out and putting them in MRE boxes. Like, what the hell else are you supposed to do?
yeah, yeah. So
It's a
it was
coping mechanism for sure.
yeah. And one of the things that I'll never forget, or it'll never leave me for sure, is one of the first times we went out on a mission in the Humvees. We were coming up upon this giant fucking pile just burning in the street, and it had this awful, just terrible fucking smell. And as we get closer, it's just a mixture of bodies and
Mm.
garbage, like literal garbage and just bodies. And like I remember, like it just reminded me of like anybody who's seen pictures of like the Holocaust and stuff like that. It was super fucking. It was just surreal. It was just surreal, and it was more or less that's what it was. Just
Yeah.
for the first 2 months out of the 4 months there, that's just what it was, pretty much fucking daily. Um, we did this medevac mission one time. We loaded up like 57 people in a couple military ambulance. It took multiple fucking trips. It was literally like a 9-hour event, and we're handing off these people into the helicopters to try to get them air medevaced out. And this little girl, she was probably 7, 8 years old. She was missing her arm on her right arm from the elbow down, and she was missing both of her legs from the knees down. And
Mm.
she just was, 1 minute she was there, and the next minute she's gone. as I'm handing her off into the helicopter. And it just, you know, that one fucked me up for a real long time. That one fucked me up, that specific event I allowed to be a real big crutch,
Yeah.
an excuse for my drinking, when I
Yeah.
got back. But so that was that. I mean, look, I could talk for fucking 9 hours about that deployment, but I'm not going to.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's okay. I was talking to Jason Uselton on Saturday out
Mhm.
there at the nursing home, and a couple weeks ago I had Michael Springer on. I don't remember if you met Michael Springer.
Oh,
He
I
was
did.
there when
Yes,
we were
yes.
there in July. Yeah, so he's a combat vet too, and I had never heard his story either. And he had some really crazy stuff he saw. IEDs, his best friend getting blown literally to nothing right in front of him, like all that kind of stuff. And then hearing just Jason and Maria are going to be on in a few weeks.
Awesome.
And then hearing your story, the more I actually, there's a meme that Ben's posted and I've posted. It says, "Sit with warriors, the conversation sits different." When you listen to people that have actually been through this kind of shit, and I said it, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but it's no wonder that people go to war and come back fucked up.
Yeah,
And it's no wonder they go to war and come back and turn to substances because, dude, like that is some traumatic shit,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
Jason's actually the one who urged me to talk a little bit about Haiti because when I was
And he
coming
told me that Saturday when I told him you were going to be on Monday, he said, dude, I got to talk about Haiti. You got
Yeah,
to.
yeah, because he there was when we were coming back from that deployment. I'll say this and then I'll move on. When we were coming
Okay.
back from that deployment, we had our sergeant major at the time stand there on a little fucking podium type thing and say, "None of you have done anything hardcore. None of you have, done anything worth a fuck.
This
And
is
if I,
after you saw all that stuff
yeah, yeah, this was like literally like we were getting on the planes in a couple of hours
to
to come back
leave.
to the
Yeah.
States.
Okay.
And he said, if I hear of anybody going to sick call for mental health to talk about this or claim any sort of PTSD, I will fucking ruin your career and I will make your life a living hell within this unit. And it was like, okay. And we
And
came back.
as you're saying that, I don't mean to interrupt you, but in
No,
my
you're good.
head, and I could be totally wrong, but in my head, that was his way to deal with it, was to shut it out. F this bullshit. Like, I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to talk about it. My guys are not going to talk about it because I don't want to hear about it ever again. You know what I
Honestly,
mean?
that might be it. That could
And
very well
like I
be it.
said, I could be wrong. He could have just been a freaking sadistic asshole. But I
Well, the
think,
thing is,
you know,
the infantry has this stigma attached to it that you need to be badass 24/7, nothing bothers you,
yeah,
nothing shakes you
right,
because you're infantry. Now, especially being in an airborne unit when an airborne unit is the most elite unit you can get
right,
before you go into
right.
Rangers or Green Berets.
I
So,
mean, and I'm not a military guy, but you hear of different, like the 101st, and I've heard of the 101st, I've heard of the 82nd. You know what I mean? Like you hear about some of these elite airborne units.
it's so I think was a big part of it. But yeah, we got back and nobody, like, even amongst ourselves, we didn't talk about it
Right.
until, you know, uh, every now and again, my best friend through the military, his name's Memo. That's his nickname. Every now and again, him and I would talk about it while we were in.
Was he a Mexican guy?
Yes.
You know that means evil or bad in Spanish.
Does it really?
Yeah.
That's his
So
nickname.
I was locked up with a guy that was like one of the head dudes for the Texas Syndicate. They're a Mexican prison gang.
Mhm.
And that's what they called him was Memo, and it means evil. And I'm 99% sure I'm remembering this right. It's been a long time, but yeah, it means evil or bad.
He's a great dude. I love that guy. He
Yeah,
gave me my 6-month medallion. I
heck
love,
yeah,
but
heck yeah.
him and
Anyway,
I
sorry.
and no, you're fine. Him and I and a couple other guys. Every once in a blue moon, it would get brought up, but a majority of it was not spoken about until we were out. Um, and that hasn't been, at least on my end, until recently because, um, I haven't been in connection with a lot of the guys that I served with until I got sober. Um, but anyways, we get back in the States and, um, I drink, 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 drink. I'm not of age. And I show up to work one morning, plastered off my balls, and my squad leader says, "You better not fall out. You better be able to keep up with the run. You better be able to fucking perform. Don't fuck up." And I didn't. I kept up with the run, and I did well enough to where they wanted me to be on the 10-mile team for the 82nd. And it put in my head I can show up to work every day drunk, and as
Yeah,
long as I do my job properly, no one's going to say anything. And that's what
right.
happened for the rest of the time I was in the States. I showed up to work drunk every day. The second I got off work, I would start drinking. And at this point in time, I was drinking 2/5 a night. I would start at
Wow.
around 6 o'clock at night and get done at about 2 in the morning, go to bed, and then get up at 5 a.m. And I did that
Wow.
Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, um, I would polish off like a gallon, like the big fuck
Yeah.
you bottles.
Yeah.
And then it was time to go on my second deployment. On my second deployment, I went over to Iraq. I bounced all over the place. I landed in Al Asad, Iraq, and then was in Taji, from Taji to Baghdad, downtown Baghdad, from downtown Baghdad to Taji, and from Taji into Kuwait.
Yeah.
When we officially ended the war in 2011. Now, when I was on my second deployment, there were two gentlemen that were in our company, David Hickman and Carl Hall III. Um, both of them were killed less than a month before coming home. And that hit everyone real fucking hard.
Yeah.
Uh, an IED ripped through their truck, and David Hickman died shortly uh, shortly after being air medevaced out. What had happened was he essentially drowned in his own blood, um, from the fluids because it punctured his lungs. And Hall died a few months later from injuries that were sustained, or the injuries that he had sustained
Right. Right.
from that. Um, when Hickman died, we did a service. We held a funeral in Iraq for him. Um, and when Hall died in the States, I was there. We had it in the church, on one of the churches on base. And, uh, one of the things I'll never forget about that was his wife. Obviously, Carl Hall's wife was there and his 1-year-old son. And when at the end, she just let out this gut wrenching, just that guttural scream. And man, everyone was hanging pretty strong. Because you try to hang strong for
Yeah.
those. And I remember when she broke out, you know, looking to the left and the right, and everyone is just, you know, everyone had stopped trying to play man at that point, I think, and was
Right.
just,
Right.
but that was on, uh, yeah, it was just, those were brutal. Those were brutal because they were both, you know, they were both amazing guys. And, I allowed that to be a big excuse
Yeah.
for drinking as well. Um, so after that happened, I sat in Kuwait for, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks, and then came back to the States, and I had 11 months left on my contract. Um, Now, I didn't want to be in an airborne unit anymore. What had happened to me in 2010, I sustained a real serious injury on a jump. I was getting ready to exit the aircraft. Believe this was like my 17th or 18th jump, and the pilot canted the aircraft to the side pretty rough, and I ended up falling forward, and I got caught up and was called was what is a towed parachutist. It's when your parachute doesn't deploy and you're actually being dragged by it against the side of the airplane while it's in flight. Um,
Wow.
my leg got caught up, and I was smacking against the side of the aircraft at, you know, 1,700 feet at, you know, 140 something miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know, smacking against the side of the aircraft. I ended up getting loose. My parachute wouldn't open all the way, so I had zero steering capability, and I plummeted to the ground. I broke my L1 through my L5. I cracked my hip. I cracked my pelvis. I tore both my hip flexors, and I had a wicked ass concussion. Um, I did not want to be in an airborne unit after that. I was terrified of
Yeah, I bet.
jumping, but I still
Yeah.
had to fucking jump afterwards. And I still deployed with all those injuries, because my squad leader, or my platoon sergeant at the time, I was on what's called a profile, where they don't allow you to deploy if you have certain injuries. And he said, as long as you have that piece of paper, you can't deploy. I'm going to walk out of the office, and I threw it in the shredder. So that allowed me to deploy with all those injuries. But I didn't want to be in an airborne unit. I wanted to deploy. That wasn't going to happen. So I said, fuck this, fuck the Army, and I got out.
Yeah.
Um, that was on December 7th of 2012 was my official day that I got out of the Army. Within 24 hours, I was up living in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I had bought Xanax, cocaine, got a bottle of sangria, and that's how I celebrated my first day out. And within the first day out, I was back to full blown drugs. I was back to morphine, Percocets, Xanax, Vicodin. I was getting cocaine. I was smoking weed, and I was drinking. And
That's a hell of a concoction.
it's what,
Well, your body didn't know whether to go up, down, sideways, or
yeah,
inside out, did it?
it was whatever I could to just completely obliviate myself, and not, I didn't want
Yeah.
to know my name. I didn't want to know my name, my surroundings, or nothing.
Yeah.
And I stayed like that every day. Um, I ended up, and this is where I got to be very careful. I ended up being able to get hospital grade fentanyl for cancer patients. Um, I had access to liquid Dilaudopin. I
Mm-hmm.
had access to Dilaudopin in the pill form, and I had an unlimited script of morphine. None of it was in my name. It was in someone else's name, but I was allowed access to all of this for a situation that they were in, and they knew that I was a drug addict and alcoholic, and they kept me loaded 24/7 in order to help take care of them for their medical and personal needs.
Yeah.
And I did everything I could to just forget who I was, where I was, what was going on. Um, and, that was, I drank and did drugs to that excessive amount because I didn't want to be alive anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, when I would wake up the next morning, I was bummed out that I didn't die. I was bummed
Mm.
out that I was still alive, that I was still here. Um, I just I wanted to not be around anymore. And in 2017, I had reached that breaking point, and I had wrote 5 goodbye letters, and I sat on the floor of my apartment with my body leaned against my bed, and I grabbed my 12 gauge shotgun, and I charged it, and I put the barrel in my mouth, and I closed my eyes, and I pulled the trigger. Now, I had never unloaded my shotgun in my life. It always stayed loaded.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, at some point the night prior or a few days prior, I had unloaded it apparently. But when I heard that metallic click and nothing happened, tears started just running down my face hardcore. And it that should have been my rock bottom, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. I doubled down. I started missing work a lot. Um, and I just increased the amount of fentanyl that I was using. And at that point, I was drinking 3/5 a day. And if I didn't have work the next day, I would drink an entire gallon, and then I would buy a pint. Um,
Hang on, let me interrupt you.
no, you're
Just
good.
hold that thought.
You're good.
So this girl that's up on the screen, Stormy Clark, she's
Mhm.
from Texas. She's from my neck of the woods. I met her for the first time 2 weeks ago. I'll see her again tomorrow night at Celebrate Recovery. Um, she has an amazing story too. So I've heard. I'm trying to get her on the show, but she said, "But God, won't He do it?" And do you know that's what Jennifer says? My fiance, Jennifer Furley. That's what she says all the time. Look at God. Won't He do it? 6.5 hours apart, y'all are saying the same thing. All right. Anyway, carry on. Sorry
No,
about
you're
that.
good, brother.
I just had to. I thought that was amazing.
No, you're good. So I, I, so now, like I said, man, I didn't, I didn't have like, I wasn't someone who went out and hung out with people or got high with other people. I sat in an apartment that had nothing in it other than a bed, a TV, a nightstand, like just the
Yeah. Bare
simplistic,
bones.
the bare bones, and would drink and get high to oblivion by myself.
That is crazy for me to wrap my head around, dude. Because after my brother died last year, I started drinking real heavily. Um, and on my best nights, I was only drinking a fifth, and I say only compared to your 2 or 3, but I
Yeah,
was drinking a fifth a night and still waking up. Like I can't even imagine drinking any more than that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
I did.
it just like I don't. You were just like it was really God's hand on you. You didn't get alcohol poisoning and die.
Oh
You know
no,
what I mean?
I had alcohol poisoning several times, but
Oh, did
I'm
you?
not I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna stay here and just ride the fuck out. Like I said, I wanted to
Right.
die, man. I was not gonna go get fucking help.
Right.
But what finally hit me for my rock bottom and my eye opener was um I had I had put two of the 20 milligram fentanyl patches on me, and I was like 120 milligrams into Ambien, and I had just finished a bottle, and I was hallucinating pretty hardcore, and I thought there was somebody inside my kitchen. And I grabbed my shotgun and I stumbled into the kitchen and I started pumping rounds and just blew apart the entire fucking kitchen in the apartment. I
Wow.
literally shot 6 fucking shells into the fucking inside my apartment.
Wow. Hey, I can't
Tore
even imagine how bad, like, not even how bad your apartment was, but how bad your ears had to have been ringing after ringing off 6 12 gauge shots in an enclosed
Dude,
area like that.
it was brutal. And I freaked out, man. It's sober, that saying, "Oh, it sobered me up." You know what? It sobered me the fuck
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
and I hid everything. My bed was hollow, and I threw the mattress off and put all my firearms in there, all my drugs, and all my alcohol in there, and I sat there and waited.
Yeah.
I lived in a really shitty area of
Yeah.
Indianapolis, so no cops ever showed
Yeah.
up.
It's like
But that
South
morning, my
Memphis
car,
gunshots go off and
yeah,
nobody thinks twice about it.
so it creeps up to about 7 a.m. and I call my attorney who handles all my veteran stuff for me, and I'm bawling my eyes out on the phone with him, and I tell him I need help. I said I need help. I don't know what help is supposed to look like, but I need help. And he said, "Give me till the end of the day." By the end of the day, he had got me set up to where I had I had done 3 over the phone consults, and I was going to be going into rehab. Um, I didn't when I went into rehab, I just looked at it like boot camp or basic
Yeah.
training. That's what I looked at it as. It's just gotta be here and get through the fucking mind games and whatever. I just need 30 days. I just need to sober up for 30 days so I know how to drink and drug successfully and so I can get these suicidal and homicidal thoughts out of my
Right.
head.
Right.
Then I'll be good.
Drink
Uh,
successfully.
yes. And
It's
there's a
crazy
count
how our addict
there
minds think,
yeah,
isn't it?
it really is, man. It really is. But no, this counselor pulled me aside about 10 days in, and he said, "You're the only one here who isn't a felon, and you're the only one here um, who has the military background of discipline that you're going to have a fighting chance if you take this
Yeah.
seriously." He goes, "But if not, you're gonna die. You're gonna absolutely fucking die." And I really, really thought about it, and I was so tired of living the same fucking way. I was tired of wanting to die every day of my life, and I was tired of just nothing was fun. Nothing was fun, nothing was enjoyable, and it was just one giant facade. And drinking and using drugs fixed that until it didn't fix it anymore.
Yeah.
And I took rehab seriously from that point on. And I got in there on January 15th of 2021, and I got out on Valentine's Day of 2021. And I moved down here to Memphis 14 days later. where I did not know anyone. I didn't know anyone or anything, nothing about the city. And, you know, I have had my fair share of struggles within sobriety. Probably the biggest one um, was my sponsor killing himself. Um, that man had been with me since I was sober for 4 months and was with me every day of my life until he killed himself almost 2 years ago.
Wow.
And he that man helped teach me what it was like to want to be a good person, because I didn't know how. I had all this anger. When I walked into the rooms of AA, I sat in the back.
Yeah.
And I just grinded my fucking teeth and fuck all these people. Fuck it, you're all in denial.
Yeah.
Like nobody knows and it was just, and that man, um, he just he did something for me, with me, and to me that made me go, like, life can be good
Yeah.
in sobriety.
Yeah.
So when he took his own life, it absolutely fucking destroyed me. It still destroys me now.
Man, I can't
Talking
even,
about it is,
dude. Man, that had to have been rough. I can't even imagine.
yeah, I got the call that actually Kaylee was here. We had only been dating for like 3 months. Um, and I was supposed to be going out to dinner with him that night, and I was waiting for him to call me to let me know that he was ready. And a friend of ours within that group gave me a call and asked what I was doing, if I was okay. And he said, "Well, I got really bad news." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Sean's dead." And at first I was just like, I thought they were playing a trick on me. I thought they were trying to play a trick on me to get me to come to his
Yeah.
house. And I was like, I wasn't taking none of it seriously. And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Sean's dead, buddy." And I was like, "Well, what are you talking about? Like, what did he do? What happened?" And he said, "Do you really want to know?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "He shot himself." And I stood there in my kitchen and I was just dead silent. And I was like, "Hey, I gotta go." And I hung up the phone. And within 30 seconds to a minute, my phone started to brick out from all the phone calls and text messages that I was getting within the AA
Yeah.
community that knew
Yeah.
him. And that's when I knew it was real. And Kaylee came walking back in and she knew something was wrong. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Sean's dead." And she immediately walked over to me, and that's when I just lost it. I fucking screaming, yelling. Um, and I wasn't, it, it ripped me in half. I quit taking all my, I'm one of those people that, the big book talks about, some people need to seek outside help with medications and stuff. I am one of those people. I'm bipolar manic depressive. I have severe anxiety disorder, PTSD, and I quit taking all my medication. I didn't know if I wanted to be sober. And I stayed away from AA for probably about 10 days, 7 to 10 days. I just sat in the apartment.
Yeah.
And I didn't shower, nothing. it took until talking to his his wife. She called me and she's like, "There's some things you need to know." And that's when I had learned that he had relapsed and had been relapsing for 6 months and couldn't get sober. And it just Sean and I used to talk to him about how if I ever relapsed, I would put a gun in my mouth and end it. Because I know for a person like me, if I can't, and now this is not for anybody else. I can only speak on what is for me. So I don't want anyone thinking that if they slip or relapse, that they cannot make it back in the room. You absolutely
can.
I am only speaking on what I believe to be true for me, for Kris. That if I slip, it is not going to be a slip. It is going to be a whole fucking head in my ass out there. So if I make that promise to myself that I will end it if I relapse, then I understand exactly what cards are on the table. And every time I've wanted to go back out, I think of that promise to myself. And that's a good goddamn motivator.
It is a good motivator. But I'm going to tell you, like, I don't know. Do you know Keith Burgess?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he says all the time, man. He said there ain't no shame in going back out. There's only shame if you don't come back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shit happens. And you and I both know, like, we've got somebody in our little We Fight Monsters community that's struggling right now with the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It happens, man. All we can do is be there for you or me or him or whoever else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't kick them to the curb. You don't shun them. You reach out to them. You love on them. Bro, I'm still here. Like, you and I are still, like, we're still tight like white on rice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But yeah, that's that's how, Gangland Express and We Fight Monsters became such an important.
Yeah. So tell us, because we're getting, like, we can keep going or whatever. It doesn't even matter to me. Like, this is an awesome conversation, but tell us how you got hooked up with Ben and them.
Okay. So, I'm a published author and
we want to talk about the book too. So let's just kind of segue all this in together.
Yeah. Awesome. We can do that. So, I have a short story that's in a set of other short stories, and it is that they have all the proceeds. The publishing company has all the proceeds go to Flanders Fields.
Okay.
The publishing company reached out to me and said, "Hey, the guys who own that are right in your fucking hometown or right where you live." And I didn't know that. So
how did you even hear about Flanders Fields? Social media?
From the publishing company.
Okay.
The publishing company are two special forces guys, and they fuck with anybody who's doing stuff for veterans.
Okay.
And they like to find the small operations and help them rather than just
find, I love
like
that, dude. I say that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, like, you can support any of the big nonprofits that you want to. Like, they're all doing great stuff, but, like, find a small nonprofit.
Yeah. And that's what they did. And they told me they're right there. So I did an at mention on Twitter to Black Rifle Company.
Okay. Not coffee.
And I got not coffee. And I got it. I got a DM the next day with Ben's number.
Wow.
Saying text him, because in the app mention I said who I was and that I'm the authors. And someone messaged me, DM'd me with Ben's number, and I reached out to Ben, and within 2 days, the house on Melrose, I was out there picking up garbage and all the stuff, and that's where I met Josh. That's where I met Bobbitt, and everything. And then the very next day, I went back out there again with Kaylee, and her and I helped, and we brought everybody breakfast. And then I started getting linked with, and that's when I officially met Ben.
Okay.
And then from there, it's just that's how I got involved with this whole thing. Was a fucking tweet, just wanting to help.
When I look, like, not just when I look at how I got involved with them, how you got involved with them, how other people got involved with them, like it's always just like some random ass thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Yeah, it really was.
Who's
man.
Kris Leahy?
That is my father.
He's proud of you. Good to see you, Kurt, man. Thanks for dropping in, brother. So yeah, tell us how, like, you got involved with them. You were picking up trash, and then kind of tell us.
Yeah, picking up trash, and then I just said, "What if you guys need anything? Just let me know. Whatever it is, just let me know." And for a while, it was a lot of just promoting their shit on social media, coming out to like 1 or 2 events, and then because I was working I was working a job. I was with a career with this company for 8 years prior, and they called me in under false pretense of I was getting a raise and a promotion and back pay. And I show up and they slide over a manila envelope with my termination papers.
God dang.
Yeah. So after that, I showed up to Gangland had just opened up. They had been around for maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah. And when we met in July of last year, Gangland wasn't even, like, they were looking at the warehouse.
Yeah, they were looking at the warehouse. They were waiting to sign the keys.
Yeah,
waiting to sign the lease.
Exactly. Yeah, but it would still be a month or 2 before that happened.
Yep. So Gangland was around for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I showed up to Gangland.
Let me interrupt you for just a second, baby. Jennifer, my FaceTime's going off with you and Alyssa and April, so I'll jump in there when I can. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good, brother. So I showed up and I just said, "Hey, I can volunteer more. What do you guys need? What do you guys want? How can I help?" And Ben and Robert had asked what had changed, and I told them I just lost my job, so like I have all the free time in the world, so whatever you guys need help with, I'm here to help. And Robert and Ben wanted to know the details of how much money I was making. I told them, and they said, "Look, we can't pay you that right now, but we think in the future we can get there one day. Like, we're very optimistic." And they hired me right on the spot. And so I've been with them since. But if it wasn't for Ben and Jess and Robert, like, they came when I absolutely, like, I was in a bad spot mentally and emotionally with my sponsor suicide still, and I was slowly losing hope.
And right about that time, you were going through the skin cancer stuff and like having all that kind of stress. And if I'm bringing, like, you've posted about this, I'm pretty sure. So I hope I'm not bringing up anything that's off limits. Okay.
No.
Like going through some medical stuff that was like had you down and like worried and all this stuff was hitting you all at once.
Yeah. They had, I got diagnosed with shingles on a Tuesday. And then on that Friday, 3 days later,
giving you a hug out in front of BB King's, and you were like, "Easy, bro, easy."
Yeah. And Ben was the first person that I reached out to.
Yeah.
That I got diagnosed with cancer, and they were unsure of which one it was. They said it's one of two.
Yeah.
One of them is basal cell carcinoma, and it can be treated, and you'll be all right. The other one will metastasize in your brain, and it will kill you if in the next 18 months. Those were the two things I was told, and then we'll call you in 3 weeks with your results.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
I walked out. Yeah, I walked out. It was the longest walk of my life, and I sat in my truck and I called my mother, bawling my
Man,
eyes
I bet.
out. And then I called Kaylee, and Kaylee left work. I believe she left work or she called out of work. It was something, and she immediately came here because I was just like,
Speaking of Ben, what's up, Ben?
there he
We
is.
love you too, man.
But yeah, they Ben, Jess, and Robert, man, they have, like, even though I was 4 years sober or 3 years and change sober, before I met them, they have given me an absolute rebirth, just within my sobriety. So like I'm forever grateful to them, and I'm forever grateful to Kaylee for sticking by. You know, I've put her through the ringer. You know, she's had to deal with a lot. You know, anybody who's not an addict or an alcoholic and is dating one in recovery who also has mental illnesses, like it's a lot for anyone to fucking handle and take on. For as strong as she is, I'm grateful. But yeah, that's how I got linked with them. And, you know, and then when Wither Universe was coming out with the second book for short stories, I got published in that one as well.
Garland?
We got Garland in there. And
man, I love that
the
dude,
publishing
man.
company.
I love Big Homie Boy. Like
Yes.
that dude right there, that's my boy.
Yep. And the publishing company reached out to me and they said, "Look, you're the one who works with the We Fight Monsters people. Is it solid like it's like how they put it out there?" And I said, "Absolutely." And they said, "Well, we're thinking about having all the money for that go to that organization, even though we have another one in mind." And I said, "Look, I don't, you know, I'm just one of your guys' authors, but if I have a say, I think it should go to We Fight Monsters."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, that's what we'll do." So then the proceeds to the second short story, go to We Fight Monsters. And then my book, Blackened, I met Michael Springer at the Tunnel to Towers event. Ben and Robert were nice enough to have Kaylee and I be guests with their organization for the event. And Michael Springer was one of them. And that's when I met Michael. And I spoke with him and found out what he was doing with We Are the 22.
He's a freaking rock star, dude.
And he really is.
Him and Justin. Have you met Justin too? Justin Works?
No, I have
Okay,
not.
they were there in July. They didn't come to BB King's with us. I think they had already skipped town by then, but that's kind of his compadre, and We Are the 22 and Call to Duty. Like they do both of it. Like they're like that.
Like that. But I you know, so 10% of the proceeds to Blacken go to We Are the 22. That's the part of the contract with being one of the authors for Wither is 10% of your proceeds have to go to an organization. You can pick the organization, but it has to go to an organization. And you know, I was like, I want them to go. I want my shit to go to We Are the 22. And, you know, as soon as we got about a year's worth of the sales from Blackened, we did one giant lump sum to We Are the 22. And then I donated my 40% share of the book book proceeds that I made personally to it as well, because you don't make a whole lot of money
No,
fucking selling
no.
books. You just don't. And the amount that they were going to get from the back pay of 8 months, I wanted it to be more. So I said, look, it's just give mine up as well. But yeah, anything to help.
Yeah.
We are the 22, man. I'm glad that
And for anybody that
Blackens.
doesn't know, We Are the 22 works with veterans, specifically in mental health stuff, because it's like, what is it, 22 a day veterans? 22 veterans a
Yeah,
day
22.
commit suicide, right? So they work with veterans in addiction, going through mental health crises, all this kind of stuff. And then Call to Duty does the same thing with veterans, but more on the addiction side than the mental health side. So it's like two organizations that work hand in hand to help veterans. And both and
Yeah.
Michael and Justin both are combat vets.
Okay. I knew Michael
Yep,
was, because I
yep.
spoke with
No,
Michael and
I'm
everything like that.
99% sure Justin is too.
Yeah, because I was telling Michael about some of my problems with my disability rating at the time. And when I told him about me being a towed jumper and breaking all my stuff, he's like, you should have been medevaced. You should have been med boarded out and fucking given 100% at that point.
Yeah,
So I spoke with I thoroughly enjoy speaking with him every time. He's a great
there's
guy.
Justin right there. Hey, brother, good to see you, man. Thanks for dropping in for a minute. Yeah, that's what I thought. They're both combat vets. I thought Justin was too. Yeah. All right. Anyway, all right.
But yeah, man, that's pretty much my story, man. Like I tried to tried to keep it short, sweet, and simple.
Dude,
But I don't have these crazy, I have the typical crazy bar stories or whatever. But for the most part, man, I was an isolated, closeted,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
alcoholic and drug addict who I didn't hang with others, man. I stayed by myself and stayed loaded 24 hours a day, 7 days a
yeah.
week for 17
I get
years.
that a lot from people. They're like, "Oh, I don't have a crazy story like some of the other people you've had on before." You know what? Everybody's story is their story. And it doesn't matter whether you're a combat vet who stayed loaded 24/7, whether you were like Ben and Jess who were out there in the streets of South Memphis homeless, or whether your story, like my story, is not that crazy as far as things go, but it's still an addiction story and an overcoming story. And it doesn't matter. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter whether it's crazy, you know, it's still, you did this, you got here, now you're doing this. You
yeah,
overcame it. It doesn't
yeah.
matter how crazy you think it is or isn't. It's still your
That is
story,
true.
and it will resonate with someone maybe more than yours will. You know,
That is very true. That is very true.
because like people tell me that all
Yeah.
the time, man. I can't come on your show, dude. You've had some people with some crazy stories, and I'm like, bro, like everybody's story is worth something, man. There's nothing more powerful than a story.
Yeah, that is true, man. It's like, and the powerful message behind it is the truth within it,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
As long as you're true to your word with it. And I know, that's you know, it was I absolutely I feel for any addict or alcoholic. I truly do. Um, but I especially feel for the ones who are isolating themselves 24/7 within the confines of their own
yeah,
home and don't reach out or talk to anybody and just stay in their head all day long and just get blitzed to the fucking ninth
yeah,
degree. And they just feel that being by myself in this dark room with no one around me is the best thing I can do for society and the world. And it's what I deserve, because I only deserve terrible
right,
things.
right.
And that my sponsor was the first person to tell me that I deserve to have good things happen to me. And I'm worthy of being loved. I had never heard that before in my life. I had never heard that. And when he told me that, it was, I broke down because I didn't know what that was like.
Yeah.
And I come from very loving
Yeah,
parents,
I
man. My
did
parents
too.
loved me.
Yep, I did too. Great home growing up. Like I had a great home, and I still went sideways.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's that I know for me, I had this dying urge to just want to belong. And I still have this now in sobriety. I have this fear that no one likes me, everyone hates me, and the second I walk out of the room, someone is talking like, "God damn, are you with this motherfucker again?" And fucking goddamn in the group messages, like I just spoke with a pastor to try to help with the cleanup stuff. And I was, like, hey, I hope I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. Because the last thing I want is for anybody to just fucking hate me. I tried to buy friends in the military, guys who couldn't afford stuff. It's going to cost $600 here. Have it.
Yeah,
I'll buy it. Buy your
yeah,
friendship. I'll buy your love and
yeah,
kindness towards me. And, that's all I wanted growing up was to feel a part of, because I got bullied relentlessly, and I got the shit smacked out of me with bullies non-fucking stop, and I just wanted to fit in and be accepted to some
yeah,
degree. And if I can be the loudmouth, stir the pot, fucking blitz, like, oh wow, see how much he drinks, see how many pills he pops,
hmm,
and he acts that fucking insane and crazy. Okay, I'm getting noticed for something.
yeah,
I'm getting recognized for something. And that's what spiraled it. It wasn't I want to have a drink for the first time to see what it's like to have fun. No, I just want to be accepted. I want to make people laugh so I can be
yeah,
loved.
yeah. For sure, I get that 100%. Dude, this has been freaking amazing, man. Like I appreciate you so much for coming on and and just sharing your story and being so raw and real and just like down to earth about it. And like, yeah, this is what I did. Like,
And I appreciate you having me on, dude. I really do. I really, really do, man. It means the world because if it just reaches one
yeah,
person, if it can resonate with one person, that's that's all I give it. That's what I care
yeah. And let
about.
me show this real quick. Since you work at Gangland, this is
Hmm.
one of the trap house boards. So some of the wood in this, I'm not sure exactly which pieces were made from. I don't remember if it was 1186 or 1191 Melrose, but it came out of one of the trap houses on Melrose. So this is one of the serving boards, and I had a bunch of people from, I mean, like Daphne right here. She used to sell dope. Lucretia out of the Woodward House. Like, there's people from the hood that have signed this. There's people like Lucretia right there. Lucretia Sims and Daphne are sisters. Um, like there is a lot of history in this, not only in just the wood, but in the signatures on it. They make amazing stuff like this, y'all. Anything from cutting boards to serving boards to um, Adirondack chairs to
Yep.
uh,
Tables.
tables to Mariah makes all kinds of crazy little, I don't want to call it trinket, but like really customized like toys and decoration type stuff. Like they're literally changing lives and giving people purpose and teaching them skills, whether you're a vet or whether you're an addict in recovery. Um, so if
Yep.
y'all want some really awesome, and they can do custom stuff too. So if you don't see it on the website,
Yes.
go to ganglandexpress.com. If it's not on the website, send them a message. They can do some custom stuff for you too.
Yep.
We're
We
probably
absolutely can.
we're probably gonna have y'all probably gonna have Mariah or somebody there. So when my sister and brother-in-law got married, they had this big like wooden heart, and instead of a guest book, everybody signed the heart.
Oh,
And
that's
it had
dope.
like Josh and Kara established 2023 or whatever it was, etched on there. So we're probably going to do something similar. Have y'all do it for our wedding, so that's going to be the guest book.
Oh yeah, we absolutely do.
Yeah, I know, right? Like that. I need to get probably ought to get with Robert on that one pretty quick.
Yeah,
yeah.
Especially
I love Mariah too.
you want it to be. Yeah.
I need to get with him real quick on that one.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
All right. So look, if they want to get your book, dude, I should have got the links from you beforehand.
That's all right. They can go.
Go ahead. Tell us how to look for the books.
You guys can go to witheruniverse.com. When you get on there, it'll say website under construction, but it's fine. You can scroll down. You'll see my book Blackened. Click on it. It'll automatically send you to Amazon, and you can purchase it there. Like I said, 10% of the proceeds go to We Are the 22. If you're a Kindle Unlimited member, I highly suggest that you hop on to witheruniverse.com to grab the book, because Kindle Unlimited is always doing plugs and promotions for my book for free. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, grab the book for free. I also recommend check out the short story Wither Chronicles Volume 2, which Garland and I are both in. Garland has an amazing story. If you're into the Twilight Zone at all, it's very Twilight-ish. Grab that, and all the proceeds of that go to We Fight Monsters. You can also get the Wither Chronicles Volume 1, where I have a short story in that, and all the proceeds to that go to Flanders Fields.
Awesome. I love it. So look, y'all, I have a big ask. I really would love to grow this podcast over the next year. If you have enjoyed this at all, please share my YouTube channel with someone. It's youtube.com at HIP is live. HIP is live. When I set it up years ago, like it was set up for all the stuff I was doing in the live streaming space, and it was HIP Productions. But that's where everything's broadcast. Obviously it's on Facebook and LinkedIn too. I would love to grow my YouTube channel. So if you know of somebody that would benefit from hearing stories like Kris's and Michael Springer's and everybody else that I've had on here, please send them my YouTube channel and help me grow it. Next week, I have Lexi Martin on. She is a trafficking survivor that is doing some pretty cool stuff in the anti-trafficking space. Week after next, this is so cool, y'all. So when I first got on LinkedIn 3.5 years ago, right after I got on, this woman named Jenny Burton had posted. She was a former meth addict. She posted a before and after picture. She had just graduated college. I hadn't been out of prison very long. I'm a former meth head. I connected with her, but we didn't connect after that, right? So, I mean, I've followed her. I've seen her post and yada, yada, yada. Well, I show up to the cleanup day on Macklemore Saturday, and I hear Ben say, "Hey, this is Jenny Burton." He's telling, what's his name from Action News 5, "This is Jenny Burton. You need to talk to her."
Joe Burton.
And I was like, oh my God, did you just say that was Jenny Burton? So anyway, I got to meet Jenny Burton in person. She's doing amazing things as far as ending addiction at the bureaucratic level. She goes into prisons. She's talking to government agencies and, trying to do like, it's a twofold thing, in my opinion. You have to meet people in the streets, but also things need to change at the bureaucratic and governmental level, right? So she's doing both. She's an absolute rock star. So she's going to be on the show in 2 weeks. We scheduled it right there in the freaking yard of the old nursing home. Sorry, I'm reading comments. Yep, just let me know, babe. You too, Ariel. I'll be more than happy to have her on. So that's what's coming up the next 2 weeks. I don't have anybody scheduled after that, but I do have Jason and Maria Uselton are going to come on. Phila Smith is going to come on. I've got some rock stars of people lined up to come on that have some amazing stories. So I'm super excited about what's coming up the rest of the year for ending the stigma.
Yeah, it'll be awesome, man. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. Dude, I appreciate you hanging out, man. Like, this has been awesome. I've loved hearing your story. And like, we've gone for, I usually shut it off about 45 to 50 minutes. We've gone for an hour and a half, and I feel like we just started two minutes ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I love it when it happens. and we've held viewers the whole time. That's how you know it's a good
Awesome.
story. So
Awesome.
thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming
dude.
on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate
All
it,
right,
man.
y'all. I think that's it. Chris, hang out for just a second after I end this. I got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Y'all, thank you so much for joining. Like I say it all the time, I couldn't do this without you. Wouldn't do it without you. Your support means the world to me, and what we're doing at the Raven is here. So I love y'all, and we will see y'all next week.